jumping in. First of all, so we are doing chapter, what is this, chapter 5, which is timpani. The word timpani is a plural word, timpani. The singular, a drum, one of these drums is a timpano, T-I-M-P-A-N-O, timpano. We use T-I-M versus T-Y-M in the United States, timpani versus T-Y-M-P-A-N-O, which would be British. If you lived in England, you would use a Y, but in America, we use an I. So the timpani, all these instruments, a bit of historical, they all derived from Middle Eastern drums. If you've ever seen tabla, the left-hand drum of a tabla is very much like these drums, and we stole these from the Janissaries when they invaded Europe back in antiquity, and we over time they've gotten larger. They used to be on horseback. We play two pairs or a pair of drums on horseback, and the drums were initially pretty small, and they've gotten larger and larger and larger. If anyone's had an opportunity to get to the Music Museum before they close down, they have some timpani there that are about this big, which is very typical of a Baroque or early pre-Baroque timpani sizes. So again, timpani is the plural, timpano is the singular. When we talk about the drums, today we refer to the drums by their sizes. So the typical set of drums, this is the typical set of 4, we have a 32-inch, a 29-inch, 26, and 23. So again, it's 32, 29, 26, and 23. These are the diameters of the drums from rim to rim, and we'll talk about this extended collar in a moment. So we refer to the drums by their sizes. If we had a 5th drum, which over at Alf's you may have seen there's a 5th drum over there, that is the piccolo drum, and that is a 20-inch drum. That is normally not in part of the normal setup. Most high schools and middle schools don't have that 5th drum. It's not all that necessary for most of your literature. But it's nice to have that. The Sioux City Symphony has one. Of course, we have one over there. We have another drum back here. You can't see it. That you may have seen in the band room. Obviously, I'm in the band room breaking quarantine. It's actually a second 23-inch. For some reason, we have two 23s here, which is kind of odd in that we have that. But so the typical size is 32, 29, 26, 23, and if you have the actual one, it's a 20. Typically, each drum has the range of a 5th. Each drum, just so you know, I mean, most of you know this, timpani are tunable, and we'll get to the tuning mechanisms later. But each drum has the range of a perfect 5th. Sometimes that's changed depending on the make of the drums, but the conservative pitch range of each drum is a 5th. So if we're talking drums, the 32-inch goes from a D to an A, perfect 5th. This is D bass clef below the staff. So that would be D, is that 1? That'd be D1, correct? Or D2, thank you very much. Below the staff, yeah, D2. D2 to A, that's D below the staff up to A. This drum, the 29, goes F up to a C. So F below bass clef up to the C. The 26 is a B flat to an F, and the 23 is a D to an A, an octave higher than our 32-inch drum. Okay, so those are the ranges of each of the drums. We adjust the pitch by using our pedals at the bottom. Now, you're not going to see the pedals because of the static camera, but I'm going to be referencing the book on page 168 and 169, and there are plenty of pictures. You can see the pedals in there, and I would grab that book out to help you kind of visualize what we're talking about. All right, so speaking of the sizes, one of the things that we mentioned this in the one lecture we did before our world came to an end, is that since the 1970s, the drums have been using what's called extended collar. So if we look at, let's say this drum, hopefully you can see this drum. The drum itself goes from here to here. That is the bowl of the drum. That is the workable rim of the drum. So from here to here is 32 inches. The counter hoop is larger than the drum. It goes out as an inch on the outside of the drum where this thing goes. So it's called an extended collar. And what that does, it's a larger collar than the drum. The reasons we have this is twofold. One, by making the collar bigger, I've now made my head bigger, so to get the same pitch, I have to pull it tighter, which is going to give me a clearer tone. The other thing is, if this counter hoop, if this hoop was right here on the edge of the drum, if this is my head, it's going to be touching the head and it might muffle it, which is going to give me a more muffled tone. So for the sake of tone, we have learned that this is going to sound better by having the extended collar. Okay, so again, most drums since the 1970s have this extended collar. So what does this do? Well, if we said is an inch all the way around the drum on either side, that means it adds to the size of the drum. So each head that we buy for our timpani needs to be 2 inches larger if we have this extended collar. So when you're buying drums for your school, you want to make sure, A, that you have the extended collar. If you don't have it, if yours is just regular, our practice timpani in our practice room, they do not have an extended collar. These do. And if you need some clarification, I can always grab the camera, show a close-up of this, show a close-up of that, so you can see the difference and get a really clear idea of the difference of the drum. But when you're buying a head for your drum, for your drums at school, if it has the extended collar, you need to add 2 inches to each of the drums. So if you're buying a drum head for your 32-inch timpano, then you need to buy a 34-inch head. If you're buying a head for your 29-inch drum, you need to buy a 31-inch head. For your 26, you have to buy a 28. For your 23, obviously a 25. So 2 inches larger are the heads that you need to buy if you have the extended collars. And like I said, for the last 50 years, we've had that. So there's a good chance that the drums at your school have that. If you buy the next size smaller, they won't fit. All right, so you need to make sure that you're getting that that larger size. So as you're ordering heads, one thing we also want to talk about with ordering heads, I'm going to grab a head and I'll be right back so I can demonstrate. Hold on one second. I don't know about you, but this is kind of fun. I'm kind of enjoying lecturing, imagining all of you in rapt attention on your computer screens, wearing your pajamas in your bedroom. This is awesome. So anyway, so this is the old marching head. If we can pretend this is a timpani head, all of the drums that all of these heads have what's called a insert ring. Thank you very much. An insert ring is an extra piece that timpani heads specifically have. And what this is if you can imagine a small, maybe half-inch metal ring that sticks up all along the head. So this outside flesh hoop, there's a ring that sticks up. Okay, so what it does is it kind of creates an extra ring that would be risen above the flesh hoop all the way around. So what this does is when my counter hoop comes on, it grabs onto that insert ring, so it's even farther away from touching the head. So again, it's going to allow the head to resonate even more. We're very adamant that we want these drums to be as resonant and as songful as possible. And so it helps to isolate. So when you're, again, buying heads for your drums, if you buy, they always have options. If you go to their website or if you talk to someone, they'll say, do you want insert rings? And they're more expensive, but if you can afford it, I would do it. It's about $50 more, I believe, per head. It depends on the head. But it makes it sound better. All of these have insert rings. The one downside is that insert ring is metallic. It's either steel or aluminum, And these hoops are also steel. And so steel on steel has a tendency to vibrate. And so what we have to do, and this is all these drums have it, there is moleskin. Moleskin is like a sticky piece of fabric that people put on their feet. You can buy it at the foot area of Walmart or whatever. We put moleskin on the rim so that we have cloth touching that steel, so we don't have steel on steel, so we don't have that vibration. So that's one of the downsides of it, but you can make it work by getting that moleskin put on there. So again, you want to buy drum heads that are 2 inches larger than the given drums. You want to make sure that you do that. Well, while we're talking about heads, let's talk about what kind of heads to get. There are 2 main types of timpani heads that I recommend. One of them is the Remo Renaissance timpani head. Okay, and make sure you buy timpani heads. You can't put a bass drum head on these things or a snare drum head or anything like that. So you have to buy a timpani head. So the Remo Renaissance head, that's what's on these drums here. It's a textured head, and it has a really good tone. The other head that I recommend is the Evans Strata, S-T-R-A-T-A, the Evans Strata head, and that is the head that we have over at Alps. That's the head that I use in the Sioux City Symphony, and it's a really good head too. I like that one better than the Remo Renaissance, but they're both good heads. Some people like these better, so it depends on what your preference is. But these are the best heads, the most calf-like sounding heads that we have on the market. So the Remo Renaissance or the Evans Strata head. And while we're talking about heads, let's talk about the spine. This is a weird concept that is less and less important, but you may see old heads on drums that have these on there, and so you kind of might have some questions about it. So if we look on page 169 in your book, on 169 there's a picture of a drum, and that drum has a calf head on it. That is that used to be part of a cow. And if you look at about 3 o'clock, 3:30 on the drum, if you imagine the drum is a clock face, there's a line going from the edge of the drum to the center of the drum, and then it kind of breaks down. But basically there's a line going through the drum. That is the spine of the calf. That's exactly where the spine of the calf was. That spot of the drum is a slightly different consistency, different thickness than the rest of the head. So that is a spot of the drum that has a different consistency to it. So when we would mount calf heads on our timpani, we had to make sure we knew where that line was, because it affected where we wanted to mount it. So if this is my head, well, let's use this again as an example. If this is my head, and let's say my spine was here, my beating spot on the spine is one of the 4 quadrants: here, 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 or here. Okay, so we would play at like a 45-degree angle from where the spine is. All right, so here, 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 or here. The spine, we do not play in line with the spine. We do not play horizontal with the spine. We play 45 degrees from where the spine is. So historically, what we would do is we would mount the head 4 times. Mount it here, 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 and here. Get it in tune, play it, see which one sounded the best, and then we would remember, I don't know how we would remember, and we would remember, oh, this is the best one, so we're going to put it here, and that's where we're going to mount it. All right, so when we went to plastic heads,